Commander Vexira stood at the observation deck of the station, watching the stars drift past in their eternal dance. Her scales shifted from blue to purple, a sign of deep thought among her people. She had lived for 3 centuries, and in all that time the galaxy had been peaceful. The Galactic Collective had seen to that. The Collective was everything. 2,847 species all living together in harmony. They shared technology, culture, and dreams. They had built a civilization that spanned the entire Milky Way. And it had all been possible because humanity was gone. Vexira turned away from the window and walked down the corridor. Her claws clicked softly against the metal floor. She was heading to meet Dr. Cale Sunweaver, the chief scientist of the Archaeological Division. He had called her urgently, saying something impossible had happened. The scientist's lab was filled with holographic displays showing ancient ruins. Cale himself was a being of pure light, his form shifting and flowing like water made of stars. His species, the Luminari, had no physical bodies. They were consciousness given form. "Commander, thank you for coming so quickly," Cale said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "What's the emergency?" Vexira asked. Cale waved his hand and a massive hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed the edge of the galaxy, where stars were few and darkness ruled. But something was wrong. The fabric of space itself seemed to be cracking, like ice breaking under weight. "What am I looking at?" Vexira demanded. "A tear in reality," Cale replied. "It appeared 6 hours ago. It's growing." Vexira felt her blood run cold. In 48,000 years, nothing like this had ever happened. The universe was stable. The laws of physics were constant. This was impossible. "What's causing it?" she asked. "We don't know, but that's not the strangest part." Cale changed the display. Now it showed ancient structures, crumbling towers, and broken machines. "These are the old human sites. All across the galaxy, they're activating. Activating? They've been dead for 48,000 years. Not anymore." Cale played a recording. A deep resonating hum filled the room. It was followed by words in a language that had not been spoken in millennia. The translation appeared on the screen. "They're coming home." Vexira stared at the words. Her mind raced with questions and fears. Humanity had vanished so long ago that they had become legends. Some species worshipped them as gods. Others feared them as demons. But everyone knew the stories. Humans had been masters of technology that broke the rules. They had built machines that could do impossible things, weapons that could destroy stars, ships that moved faster than light should allow. And then one day they were gone. Every human in the galaxy vanished without a trace. The collective had grown in their absence. They had studied the ruins and tried to understand human technology. But it was beyond them. The machines didn't follow any known principles of physics. They simply worked through means no one could explain. "We need to inform the High Chancellor," Vexira said. High Chancellor Throne was a being of living metal and fire. His species, the molten cores, were born in the hearts of dying stars. He sat upon his throne in the Grand Council chamber, his body glowing with internal heat. "This is troubling news," Throne rumbled. His voice sounded like mountains grinding together. "If the humans are truly returning, we must prepare." "Prepare for what?" asked Senator Nina Carter, a representative of the Crystal Inquirer. "War? Peace? We don't even know if they're hostile." "We know they were powerful," said another counselor. "Powerful enough to leave behind technology we still cannot understand." The council chamber erupted into debate. Some species wanted to welcome humanity back. Others wanted to flee. Still others suggested they prepare defenses just in case. Vexira listened to them argue and felt a deep unease. The collective had built its entire civilization on the idea that they were the masters of the galaxy now, that they had surpassed their ancient predecessors. But what if that wasn't true? What if humanity had simply been waiting? Over the next 3 days, the situation grew worse. The tear in reality at the galaxy's edge expanded. More human sites activated, broadcasting the same message over and over. "They're coming home." Some of the older structures began to hum with power, their ancient systems coming back to life after thousands of years. Dr. Cale worked without rest, trying to understand what was happening. Vexira stayed by his side, coordinating with military forces across the galaxy. If this was an invasion, they needed to be ready. On the 4th day, everything changed. Vexira was on the bridge of her command ship when the sensors went wild. Every alarm on the vessel began to scream. The view screen showed the tear in space growing massive, splitting reality like fabric being torn apart. "What's happening?" she shouted over the noise. "Something's coming through," her sensor officer yelled back. The tier opened fully and light poured out. But it wasn't normal light. It was light that hurt to look at. Light that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the eye could perceive. Vexira felt her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. And then the ships came. They emerged from the tear one by one, massive vessels that defied description. They seemed to be solid and transparent at the same time. Their hulls shifted between different states of matter, phasing in and out of existence. Vexira could see through them to the stars beyond, but she could also see them clearly, solid and real. "By the old stars," someone whispered. There were hundreds of them, thousands, an entire fleet materializing out of nothing, and they weren't just in normal space. Vexira's instruments showed they existed in multiple dimensions at once, their presence spreading through realities she couldn't even name. "Are they hostile?" she asked. "Unknown, Commander. They're not responding to hails. They're not doing anything. They're just there." Vexira watched the fleet hang in space, silent and still. Around each ship, reality seemed to bend. Time flowed differently near them. Light curved in impossible ways. Just looking at them made her feel strange, as if her mind was expanding to accommodate something it wasn't meant to understand. Then, finally, one of the ships sent a message. It was in the old human language, but the collective's computers translated it instantly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Vanguard Fleet. We have returned to our home galaxy. We come in peace, but we come with a warning. Something follows us, something that threatens all life in this dimension. We need to speak with your leaders immediately." The message ended. Silence filled the bridge. Vexira realized her hands were shaking. After 48,000 years, humanity had come back. But they hadn't come back the same. Whatever they had become, whatever they had experienced in their long absence, it had changed them into something beyond her understanding, and they had brought danger with them. "Send a response," she ordered. "Tell them the collective agrees to meet. But do it carefully. I don't think we want to make them angry." As her crew worked to compose a reply, Vexira stared at the human fleet on her screen. She had a terrible feeling that the peaceful age of the collective was about to end. Humanity was home, and nothing would ever be the same again. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a diplomatic station that orbited a dead moon at the galaxy's edge. Vexira had never been so nervous in her entire life. High Chancellor Throne accompanied her, along with a dozen other representatives from major collective species. When the human delegation arrived, Vexira felt the air itself change. Reality seemed to thicken around them, becoming heavy and strange. The humans walked through the airlock and into the meeting chamber, and every sensor in the station screamed warnings about impossible readings. Captain Jake Morrison was the first to enter. He looked human, at least on the surface. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face with eyes and a mouth. But something was wrong. His edges seemed blurry, as if he existed slightly out of focus. When he moved, Vexira could swear she saw afterimages, versions of him standing in places he hadn't been yet. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Chen, Commander Ben Hayes, and Engineer Kate Sullivan. All of them had that same strange quality, that sense of being more than they appeared. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Jake said. His voice sounded normal, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I know our return must be shocking." "Shocking is one word for it," High Chancellor Thrawn rumbled. "Where have you been?" "What happened to your species?" Jake glanced at his companions, then back at the collective representatives. "We left. Or rather, we evolved beyond the need to stay in this dimension. 48,000 years ago, humanity discovered we could exist in higher states of reality. We ascended." "Ascended to what?" Vexira asked. "To a place where physical laws are suggestions rather than rules," Lisa Chen answered. "We learned to manipulate the fundamental fabric of existence. We became beings of pure consciousness, able to shape reality according to our will." The room fell silent. What the humans were describing sounded like the abilities of gods. "If you became so powerful, why come back?" Senator Nina Carter demanded. Her crystalline form rang with suspicious tones. Ben Hayes stepped forward. His expression was grim. "Because we discovered something worse than anything in this dimension. Something that hunts ascended beings. We call them the Devourers." "What are these Devourers?" Thrawn asked. "Entities that exist outside normal reality," Ben explained. They feed on dimensions the way you might eat food. They consume entire planes of existence, leaving nothing behind. Not even emptiness. Just the absence of everything. Kate Sullivan activated a holographic display. It showed images that made Vexira's eyes hurt to look at. Massive, formless things that seemed to be made of anti-reality itself. Where they passed, the universe simply ceased to exist. We thought we could escape them by ascending, Jake continued. For thousands of years we lived in the higher dimensions, exploring realities you can't even imagine. We thought we were safe. We were wrong. The Devourers found us, Lisa said quietly. They've been hunting us ever since. We've been running, fighting, trying to survive, but they're relentless. And now they've followed us back to our home dimension. Vexira felt her heart sink. You brought them here? They were coming anyway, Jake replied. The Devourers don't just hunt ascended beings. They hunt all life, all complexity, all existence. This dimension was already on their list. We just accelerated their arrival by returning. But we also brought something else. A chance to fight back? Fight back? Thrawn leaned forward. How can we fight beings that consume reality? By changing reality faster than they can consume it, Ben said. That's what humanity has learned. We can manipulate the basic structure of existence. We can rewrite the rules of physics. We can create and destroy matter with thought alone. He demonstrated by raising his hand. The air above his palm shimmered and a small star appeared, burning bright and hot. Then it vanished as if it had never been. The collective representatives stared in shock and fear. You're asking us to trust you, Senator Nina said. But what you're showing us is terrifying. You can create and destroy at will. How do we know you won't turn those powers against us? Because we need you, Lisa said. Fighting the Devourers isn't just about power. It's about unity. Every conscious mind in this galaxy represents a point of resistance. Every species adds to the collective will to survive. We can't do this alone. What exactly are you proposing? Vexira asked. Jake looked at each representative in turn. We want to train your people. Teach them to use the same abilities we have. Share our knowledge and technology. Create a united defense against the coming threat. You want to change us, Throne stated. We want to give you a chance to survive, Jake corrected. The Devourers are coming. They'll be here within months. When they arrive, they won't distinguish between humans and non-humans. They'll simply consume everything, unless we work together. The meeting continued for hours. The collective representatives asked questions, demanded proof, and debated among themselves. Some wanted to accept the human offer immediately. Others, like Senator Nina, remained deeply suspicious. Finally, Vexira made a decision. Show us. Demonstrate that these Devourers are real. Give us proof of the threat. Jake nodded slowly. I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. But I understand. Kate, can you access the sensor logs from Sector 447? Kate manipulated the holographic display. This footage is from one of our scout ships recorded 3 days ago at the edge of your galaxy. The image showed empty space, peaceful and quiet. Then something appeared. It wasn't a ship or a creature. It was an absence, a hole in reality itself, and it was growing. As they watched, a star came near the hole. The star didn't explode or collapse. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, burning bright. The next moment there was nothing. Not even the memory of light. That's a Devourer scout, Lisa said. The main force is much, much larger. Vexira felt sick. She had seen weapons that could destroy stars before. The humans themselves had built such things in the old days. But this was different. The star hadn't been destroyed. It had been erased, removed from existence as if it had never been born. How many are coming? Throne asked, his voice subdued. Thousands, Ben replied. Maybe tens of thousands. Our sensors can't get an accurate count. They exist partially outside normal space, so tracking them is difficult. And when will they arrive? Based on their current speed, approximately 6 months. Maybe less if they sense strong concentrations of life. The room fell into heavy silence. Finally, Senator Nina spoke, her tone bitter but resigned. It seems we have no choice. If we refuse your help, we die. If we accept your help, we might die anyway. But at least we'd have a chance. More than a chance, Jake said. Humanity has been fighting the Devourers for thousands of years. We've learned their weaknesses. We know how to hurt them. With your help, with the strength of the entire collective behind us, we can win this war. Can we? Vexira asked. Can we really win? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? Jake met her eyes, and for a moment she saw something in his gaze. Not confidence, but determination. The look of someone who had been fighting for so long that giving up was no longer an option. "We survive," he said simply. "That's what humanity does. We survive, we adapt, and we overcome. We've done it before. We'll do it again, and this time we won't be alone." The vote was taken. Despite reservations, despite fears, the collective agreed to work with humanity. They would accept the offered training. They would prepare for war. As the meeting ended and the representatives departed, Vexera lingered. She approached Jake, who was speaking quietly with his team. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I have to ask. When you manipulate reality, change the laws of physics, create and destroy matter, does it hurt?" Jake looked at her for a long moment. "Every time," he admitted. "Reality pushes back. It doesn't want to be changed. Using our abilities is like pushing against the entire weight of the universe. It's agony, then why do it? Because the alternative is extinction." Jake smiled sadly. "Besides, pain is temporary. Death is permanent. I know which one I prefer." As Vexera returned to her ship, she couldn't shake a feeling of dread. Humanity had returned, bringing hope and terror in equal measure. They offered salvation, but at what cost? She didn't know the answer. But she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same. Kyle Stevens stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Collective's capital world, watching the delegates argue. He was humanity's ambassador, tasked with the impossible job of convincing 2,000 different species to trust his people. It wasn't going well. "You ask too much," Senator Nina Carter's voice rang out across the chamber. "You want us to expose ourselves to your reality-changing abilities. You want us to let your kind train our soldiers, teach our scientists, and influence our minds. How do we know this isn't some elaborate plan to conquer us?" Kyle took a deep breath and stepped forward to the speaker's platform. "Senator, with all respect, if we wanted to conquer you, we would have done it already. We have the power. We're offering partnership instead." "Partnership implies equality," Nina shot back. "But you hold all the power. That's not partnership. That's submission." The argument had been going on for 3 weeks. The collective was deeply divided. Some species had already agreed to work with humanity. Their soldiers were undergoing training, learning to perceive higher dimensions and manipulate reality in small ways. But many others refused, led by Nina and her coalition of skeptics. Kyle was about to respond when his communication device buzzed. It was marked urgent. He glanced at the message and felt his blood run cold. "I apologize for the interruption," he said to the assembly, "but we have a situation. I need to leave immediately." He didn't wait for permission. He ran from the chamber, ignoring the shouts of protest behind him. The message had been from Commander Ben Hayes. It was only 3 words long. "They're here early." Kyle found Ben in the military command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing chaos. Ships were moving in every direction. Alarms blared. Officers shouted orders. "What happened?" Kyle demanded. "Devourer scout, just like we feared." Ben pointed at one of the displays. Lieutenant Ryan Cross was on patrol with his squadron in Sector 229. They encountered it. Ryan's the only survivor. Only survivor? Out of how many? 12 ships, 12 crews, gone in less than 30 seconds. Kyle felt sick. "Where's Ryan now?" "Medical bay. He's in shock, but physically unhurt. We need to debrief him, find out exactly what he saw." They found Ryan Cross sitting on a medical bed, staring at nothing. He was young, maybe 25 in Earth years. His hands shook as he held a cup of water. "Lieutenant," Ben said gently, "we need you to tell us what happened." Ryan looked up at them with haunted eyes. It wasn't there. Then it was. Not like a ship jumping out of hyperspace. It just existed where it hadn't existed before. "Can you describe it?" Kyle asked. "No, I mean I can try, but words don't work. It was like looking at something that shouldn't be possible. A hole in space, but not empty. Full of something that wasn't anything. Does that make sense?" "More than you know," Ben said. "Go on." "Captain ordered us to fall back. We started to retreat. Then the thing moved. It didn't travel through space. It just was in a new location. And wherever it passed, the ships disappeared." Ryan's voice broke. "Not destroyed. Not exploded. They were there and then they were not. Like they'd never existed. But you survived," Kyle noted. "One of your people saved me. A human ship appeared out of nowhere. It did something. Made reality bend around me. The Devourer passed right through my position. but I was protected somehow. Then the human ship pulled me away and brought me here. Ben exchanged a glance with Kyle. Do you know which human ship? The pilot said her name was Sophie Blake. She told me to tell you that the Devourers are moving faster than predicted. She said we have weeks, not months. The news spread through the collective like fire. A Devourer had been sighted inside the galaxy. It had destroyed 12 ships without effort. Suddenly, humanity's warnings didn't seem so distant or theoretical. Senator Nina called for an emergency session of the Assembly. This time, when Kyle entered the chamber, the atmosphere was different. Fear had replaced skepticism. We need to discuss defense, Nina said. Her earlier hostility had been replaced by grim pragmatism. If these Devourers are truly as dangerous as humanity claims, we must act now. We've already begun preparations, Kyle replied. Commander Ben Hayes is organizing joint training exercises. Dr. Lisa Chen is sharing everything we know about the Devourers' behavior. But we need full cooperation from the collective. No more delays. The vote passed almost unanimously. Only a handful of species still refused to participate, and even they agreed not to interfere with the others. Within days, the galaxy transformed. Human ships spread out to every sector, bringing their reality-manipulating technology with them. Collective forces gathered at strategic points, preparing for the war everyone knew was coming. Bexira found herself assigned to Commander Sophie Blake's task force. It was the first joint human-alien military unit ever assembled. Sophie was intense and focused, driving her crews hard but fairly. The key to fighting Devourers, Sophie explained during a briefing, is not to let them dictate the terms of reality. They exist by consuming dimensions. We counter by creating new ones faster than they can eat. How do we do that? One of the alien officers asked. By changing what's possible. Watch. Sophie held out her hand. Above her palm, a small sphere of light appeared. But it wasn't normal light. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, spinning through realities that the observers couldn't fully perceive. This is a reality anchor, Sophie said. It fixes the laws of physics in a local area. Devourers can't erase what's anchored to multiple dimensions. It hurts them to try. These will be your primary weapons. How do we make them? Vexira asked. That's what the training is for. It takes time to learn. Your minds have to expand to perceive higher dimensions. Then you have to learn to manipulate what you see. It's not easy. Some of you will succeed. Some won't. That's just reality. The training was brutal. Vexira spent hours each day in meditation, trying to open her mind to dimensions she'd never known existed. At first it was impossible. Then slowly she began to see things. Shadows that moved in directions that had no name. Colors that didn't exist in normal space. Sounds that came from places that weren't places. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Other species had similar experiences. The crystalline beings found it easier, as they already existed partially in higher frequencies. The energy beings like Dr. Kale adapted quickly, shifting their consciousness to new patterns. But solid physical species struggled. Then came the first breakthrough. A young engineer named Kix from a species of four-armed builders successfully created a reality anchor. It was small, unstable, and lasted only a few seconds, but it proved that non-humans could learn the technique. This is good, Sophie said, examining Kix's work. Very good. You're a natural. It felt wrong, Kix admitted, like I was breaking something that shouldn't be broken. You are, Sophie said bluntly. Reality doesn't like being manipulated, but the alternative is letting the Devourers break it permanently. Choose your wrong. As more and more collective members learned to manipulate reality, strange things began to happen. Some found their bodies changing, adapting to their new abilities. Others reported seeing things that hadn't happened yet, or remembering events that had never occurred. Dr. Lisa Chen studied these effects with growing concern. The exposure is changing them faster than we anticipated, she told Kyle and Ben in a private meeting. Some of these changes might be permanent. Can we stop it? Kyle asked. We can slow it down, but we can't prevent it entirely. Reality manipulation leaves a mark on those who practice it. We've known that for thousands of years. It's part of why we ascended in the first place. The power changes you. Should we warn them? Ben wondered. We already have, Lisa replied. Multiple times. They chose to continue anyway. Fear of the Devourers outweighs fear of transformation. 3 weeks after the first encounter, the Devourers launched their first major attack. 3 star systems on the outer rim simply stopped existing. Billions of lives erased in an instant. Not killed, but removed from reality entirely. The Joint Defense Forces scrambled to respond. Sophie Blake led a fleet of 200 ships, half human and half collective, to the site of the attack. Vexira was with her, commanding one of the alien vessels. When they arrived, Vexira saw the Devourers for the first time. Not just one scout, but dozens of them, massive tiers in reality, holes that fed on existence itself. They moved through space like sharks through water, leaving nothing behind them. "All ships, reality anchors on my mark," Sophie commanded. "Remember your training. Don't think about what's possible. Think about what you need to be possible. Make it real." Vexira closed her eyes and reached for the power she'd been learning to use. She felt reality bend around her ship. She imagined the fabric of space becoming solid, immutable, fixed across multiple dimensions. And it happened. The reality anchor formed, a sphere of protected space around the fleet. The Devourers hit it and recoiled, their formless bodies writhing in what might have been pain. "Fire quantum torpedoes," Sophie ordered. "Target their dimensional weak points." The fleet opened fire, but these weren't normal weapons. They were missiles that existed in multiple realities at once, striking the Devourers across all the dimensions they occupied. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships were lost, erased by Devourer touch despite the reality anchors. But others held firm, and slowly, impossibly, the Devourers began to retreat. They're falling back, and Dr. Peter Walsh was a xenobiologist, a human who specialized in studying alien life. For the past month, he'd been examining collective members who had been exposed to reality manipulation. What he found disturbed him deeply. "They're evolving," he told Captain Jake Morrison during their private meeting. "Not gradually over generations, but rapidly. Within weeks. Some within days." Jake studied the medical scans Peter had provided. They showed dramatic changes in brain structure, cellular composition, and even genetic code. "This is what happened to us," he said quietly. "When ancient humanity first learned to manipulate reality, we changed too. It took us centuries, but we eventually transformed completely." "These people don't have centuries," Peter said. "Some are changing so fast their bodies can't adapt. We've had 3 deaths already. Beings whose consciousnesses expanded faster than their brains could handle. Have you told the collective leadership?" "I've tried. Some listen. Others don't want to hear it. They're too focused on the war." Jake rubbed his temples. "Keep monitoring them. Document everything. We need to understand what's happening so we can help those who want to stop before it's too late." But it was already too late for many. Across the galaxy, collective members who had learned reality manipulation were discovering new abilities. A Zentari soldier found she could see possible futures. A crystalline engineer realized he could split his consciousness across multiple timelines. A luminary scientist began to exist in 7 dimensions at once. The changes weren't always positive. Some lost their connection to their own species, finding themselves unable to relate to those who hadn't transformed. Others became addicted to the power, using it constantly even for trivial tasks. A few went mad, their minds unable to process the vastness of what they could perceive. Vexira felt herself changing too. Her thoughts moved faster now. She could see patterns in reality that she'd never noticed before. When she concentrated, she could almost perceive the quantum foam underlying existence, the seething chaos from which all matter emerged. It was beautiful and terrifying. "How do you live with it?" she asked Jake one day. They were on a transport ship, heading to meet with the collective council. "How do you exist with this much awareness and not go insane?" "Practice," Jake replied. "Humanity has had thousands of years to adapt. You're being forced to do it in weeks. I wish we had more time to ease you into it." "Do you regret it? Ascending, I mean. Becoming what you are now?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes. We gained power beyond imagination, but we lost something too. Our innocence, maybe. The simple joy of existing without constantly seeing all the ways reality could be different. There's a burden that comes with knowing you can change anything, because then you have to choose what to change and what to leave alone, and every choice has consequences." Before Vexira could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Another Devourer attack, this time on a densely populated sector. Thousands of inhabited worlds were in danger. The defense forces mobilized immediately. Commander Sophie Blake assembled the largest joint fleet yet, nearly 1,000 ships strong. Half were human vessels, their reality-bending technology fully active. The other half were collective ships, crewed by those who had learned to manipulate reality themselves. Vexira commanded a squadron of 12 ships, all from different species. They had trained together, learned together, and changed together. Now they would fight together. The Devourers had learned from their previous defeat. This time they came in greater numbers, attacking from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The reality anchors that had worked before were less effective. The Devourers had adapted. All squadrons spread out, Sophie commanded. Don't let them concentrate their attack. Hit them from every angle. The battle was chaos. Ships phased in and out of normal space, fighting across multiple dimensions at once. Vexira found herself commanding her squadron through battles that hurt to perceive, navigating through spaces that followed no logical rules. A Devourer appeared directly in front of her ship. Up close, it was even more horrifying than from a distance. It was a wound in existence itself, an absence that hungered to consume everything around it. Vexira didn't think. She reached out with her mind and grabbed reality itself. She twisted it, bent it, forced it to become something new. The space around the Devourer solidified, trapping it in a cage of impossible geometry. The Devourer thrashed, trying to escape. But Vexira held firm, pouring all her will into maintaining the cage. She felt reality pushing back against her, trying to return to its natural state. Pain lanced through her skull. Blood dripped from her nose. But she didn't let go. Commander, you're killing yourself, her medical officer warned. Your brain activity is off the charts. You have to stop. Not yet, Vexira gasped. She could feel the Devourer weakening, could sense it beginning to retreat back into the higher dimensions it came from. Just a little longer. Then Jake Morrison's ship appeared beside hers. She felt his power join with hers, stabilizing the reality cage. Together they held the Devourer until it finally gave up and fled, disappearing into dimensions beyond reach. Vexira collapsed, gasping for breath. Every nerve in her body screamed in agony. But she was alive. They had won. The battle continued for 14 hours. By the end, the collective fleet had driven the Devourers back again, but the cost was high. 63 ships destroyed, thousands of lives erased, and those who survived were changed even more than before. Peter Walsh examined the survivors and found that every single one had evolved further. Their genetic codes had rewritten themselves. Their brain structures had altered. Some could no longer reproduce with their own species. They were becoming something new, something that was neither their original species nor human, but a strange hybrid of both. We need to address this, Peter told the council. These people are losing their identities. Some of them can't even remember what it was like to be fully their original species anymore. Is it reversible? High Chancellor Throne asked. We don't know. Maybe, if we stop exposing them to reality manipulation immediately, but that would mean losing our only effective weapons against the Devourers. The council was torn. Some argued that preserving their species' identities was more important than winning the war. Others insisted that survival came first, identity second. Senator Nina, who had initially opposed working with humanity, surprised everyone by taking a middle position. We need to offer a choice, she said. Those who want to continue fighting, knowing the cost, should be allowed to do so. Those who want to stop before they change too much should be allowed to step back, but no one should be forced either way. The proposal was accepted. Across the galaxy, collective members were given the choice. Continue training and fighting, accepting the transformation that came with it, or stop and try to preserve who they were. Many chose to stop, but many others, like Vexira, chose to continue. Why? Jake asked her. You know what it will do to you. You'll become something your own people won't recognize. Because someone has to fight, Vexira replied, and because I've seen what's on the other side. The higher dimensions, the expanded consciousness, the ability to perceive reality in its fullness. I can't go back to seeing less. Even if it means I stop being Zentari, I can't unknow what I now know. A week later, Vexira underwent the full transformation voluntarily. Human scientists guided her through it, helping her consciousness expand beyond the limits of her original biology. It was the most painful experience of her life. For 3 days she existed in a state between life and death, her body and mind rebuilding themselves according to new rules. When it was over, she looked in a mirror and barely recognized herself. Her scales had changed color, now shifting through hues that didn't have names in any language. Her eyes could see across multiple spectrums simultaneously. Her mind touched dimensions she'd never known existed. How do you feel? Sophie Blake asked. Vexira considered the question. Different. More than I was. Less than I was. Both at the same time. She paused. I can't go home. My family wouldn't know me. High people would see me as something alien. Welcome to humanity's burden, Sophie said, not unkindly. We chose to become more and lost the ability to go back. Now you've made the same choice. Do you ever regret it? Sophie looked out the window at the stars. Every day, and never. It's complicated. More collective members followed Vexira's example. Thousands volunteered for full transformation, becoming hybrid beings that were neither human nor their original species. They formed new communities, neither fully part of the collective nor separate from it. The transformed ones proved to be the most effective fighters against the Devourers. They could perceive and manipulate reality with a skill that impressed even the humans. The tide of the war began to shift, but Peter Walsh's warnings proved prophetic. The transformations came with a price. Some of the transformed developed strange compulsions, speaking in languages no one understood, seeing threats that didn't exist. Others became emotionally distant, losing the ability to connect with anyone who hadn't also transformed. And always, there was the question that no one wanted to ask out loud. If the collective's defenders were becoming less like their original species and more like something new, what exactly were they defending? Were they fighting to? Dr. Maya Brooks worked alone in her lab, surrounded by quantum readings and dimensional scans. For months she had been studying the Devourers, trying to understand what they truly were. What she discovered made her wish she had never looked. We need to talk, she told Admiral Greg Foster when she finally worked up the courage to share her findings. About the Devourers. About what they really are. Greg was a hard man, weathered by thousands of years of war. He commanded humanity's defense fleet with brutal efficiency. I know what they are. Monsters that eat dimensions. What else is there to know? Everything. Maya pulled up her research on the holographic display. The Devourers aren't invaders, Greg. They're not evil. They're the universe's immune system. Greg stared at her. What? Think about it. What do we do when we manipulate reality? We break the natural laws. We force existence to behave in ways it's not meant to. From a certain perspective, we're a disease. A corruption. And the Devourers are the cure. That's insane. Is it? Look at the evidence. The Devourers only appear where reality has been manipulated. They're attracted to reality bending like white blood cells to infection. They don't attack natural phenomena. They only attack us in the areas we've changed. Greg sat down heavily. You're saying we caused this? Humanity's ascension, our reality manipulation, it's all making things worse. Worse than that. Maya's voice shook. Every time we use our powers to fight the Devourers, we damage reality further. We create more corruption. We attract more Devourers. We're trapped in a cycle. The more we fight, the worse it gets. The news spread through the human leadership like poison. Jake Morrison called an emergency meeting of the senior commanders. Maya presented her findings to a room full of shocked faces. If this is true, Kyle Stevens said slowly, then we're not heroes. We're the villains of our own story. We're survivors, Admiral Greg Foster countered. We did what we had to do to live. Nobody can blame us for that. The universe can, Maya replied. And it is. Jake Patterson, one of humanity's senior counselors, stood up. He was old, even by human standards, having been alive since before the Ascension. We have to consider the possibility of surrender. If we're the disease, maybe we need to accept the cure. Surrender. Greg's voice was sharp. Give up our powers? Let the Devourers erase us? Better that than condemn the entire galaxy to destruction, Jake Patterson argued. We came back to save the collective, but maybe the best way to save them is to leave again, or to stop using our abilities entirely. The argument escalated quickly. The human leadership split into two factions. Greg Foster led those who believed humanity should continue fighting regardless of the consequences. Jake Patterson led those who believed humanity needed to find another way, even if it meant giving up everything they'd become. The collective leadership was equally divided when they learned the truth. Some demanded that humanity leave immediately, taking their reality-corrupting presence with them. Others insisted that the war was already started, and abandoning it now would doom everyone. Vexira, changed as she was, found herself caught between worlds. She was no longer fully Zentari, but she wasn't human either. She understood both perspectives and agreed with neither. There has to be another answer, she told Jake Morrison. A way forward that doesn't require either surrender or self-destruction. If there is, we haven't found it, Jake replied. He looked tired, more tired than Vexira had ever seen him. Maya's research is solid. Every time we reshape reality, we make the problem worse. But if we stop, the Devourers will consume everything anyway. We're trapped. The debate raged for weeks while the war continued. The Devourers launched more attacks, growing bolder and more numerous. The defense forces fought them back, but Maya's words haunted every victory. They were fighting symptoms, not the disease. And the disease was themselves. Then came the ultimate test. The Devourers, in their largest assault yet, targeted the galactic core itself. Millions of stars clustered together, home to countless civilizations. If the Devourers succeeded in collapsing the core, the entire galaxy would die. We have to stop them, Greg Foster declared. I don't care what Maya's research says. We can't let them destroy the core. But we'll make it worse, Jake Patterson argued. Saving the core with our powers will just attract more Devourers later. We'll be trading temporary victory for permanent catastrophe. What do you suggest? Let everyone die now to prevent everyone dying later? I suggest we find a way to fight without reality manipulation. There is no way. You know that the argument went nowhere. In the end, the decision was made for them. The Devourers launched their attack, and the defense forces had no choice but to respond. Vexira found herself in command of a mixed squadron, heading toward the galactic core at maximum speed. Beside her flew Jake Morrison's ship. Behind them came Greg Foster's fleet and Jake Patterson's forces. For this battle, at least, humanity was united. The Devourers had brought their entire force. Thousands of the reality-eating entities swarmed around the core, already beginning to collapse the space around it. Stars were winking out of existence. The fabric of reality was tearing apart. All ships engage at will, Greg commanded. Save the core, whatever it takes. The battle was unlike anything that had come before. Humanity and their transformed allies poured their full power into the fight, reshaping reality on a scale they'd never attempted. Stars that had been erased were reborn from quantum possibility. Space that had been destroyed was reconstructed. Time itself was rewound in local pockets, undoing the Devourers' damage. It worked. Slowly, impossibly, the defense forces began to push the Devourers back. The galactic core stabilized. Reality held. But Maya's predictions proved correct. The amount of reality manipulation required for victory was enormous. And with each passing moment, Vexira could feel something changing. The universe itself was groaning under the strain, like a structure pushed beyond its design limits. We're tearing reality apart. Lisa Chen's voice came over the communication channel. I can see it in the quantum readings. We're creating permanent damage. Keep fighting, Greg ordered. We're almost there. Greg, listen to me. If we push any harder, we'll create a dead zone, a region where physics stops working entirely. It will never heal. I said, keep fighting, Jake Patterson broke in. Admiral, we need to stop. We've saved the core. If we continue, we'll cause more damage than the Devourers. The Devourers aren't gone yet. We finish this? At what cost? The two Jakes' argument was cut short by a new crisis. One of the largest Devourers, sensing defeat, launched a final desperate attack. It released what Maya would later call a dimension collapse bomb, a weapon that would unravel reality itself across hundreds of light years. Everybody out, Jake Morrison ordered. Evacuate the area now. We can stop it, Greg said. If we work together, we can contain the collapse. We'd have to use more power than we've ever used before, Jake Patterson warned. Maya's right. We'd create permanent damage, a scar on reality itself. Better a scar than total destruction. No one had time to argue further. Both human factions, setting aside their differences for one final effort, combined their abilities to contain the dimension collapse bomb. It was the greatest act of reality manipulation in history. Every human ship, every transformed collective member, every being capable of bending the universe to their will, worked in concert. They succeeded. The bomb was contained. The collapse was prevented. The Devourers, their final weapon negated, retreated into higher dimensions to regroup. But the cost was exactly what Maya had predicted. A region of space 3 light-years across simply stopped functioning. Physics didn't work there anymore. Time didn't flow. Matter didn't exist in any normal sense. It was a permanent wound on reality, a place where the universe had broken and couldn't be fixed. Vexira stared at the dead zone on her sensors and felt something break inside her. They had won the battle. They had saved the core, but they had also proved Maya right. They were destroying the very thing they were trying to protect. What have we done? Someone whispered over the communication channel. No one had an answer. In the aftermath, as the fleets limped home, the human leadership finally had the conversation they'd been avoiding. Both Jakes, Greg, Kyle, Lisa, Maya, Sophie, and dozens of others gathered in a virtual conference room. "We can't keep doing this," Jake Patterson said. "Today proved it. We're as dangerous as the Devourers, maybe more so because we're doing it intentionally. We're also the only thing standing between the Devourers and total annihilation," Greg countered. "What do you want us to do? Give up? Let everyone die? I want us to find another way." "There is no other way," Maya Brooks spoke up quietly. "Maybe there is. I've been thinking about something. The Devourers are attracted to reality manipulation because it damages the universe's natural state. But what if we could use our powers in a way that heals reality instead of harming it?" "How?" Lisa Chen asked. "Reality manipulation is inherently disruptive. That's why it works. What if we're using it wrong? What if there's a way to work with reality instead of against it?" "That's just speculation," Greg said dismissively. "Everything is speculation until we try it," Maya replied. "I'm not saying I know the answer. I'm saying we need to look for one. Because the current path leads to destruction, whether from the Devourers or from our own actions." The meeting ended. Dr. Lisa Chen hadn't slept in 3 days. Her lab was filled with quantum equations and dimensional models, all focused on one question: was there a way to use reality manipulation without attracting the Devourers?
Maya Brooks worked alongside her, running simulation after simulation.
The answer kept coming back negative. Every model showed the same result. Reality manipulation caused damage. Damage attracted Devourers. It was an iron law of the universe. "Wait," Lisa said suddenly. "We've been thinking about this wrong. We're trying to manipulate reality without causing damage. But what if that's impossible? What if the solution isn't to stop damaging reality, but to heal it faster than we damage it?" Maya looked at the equations Lisa was writing. "You're talking about a feedback loop. Use reality manipulation to fix the problems caused by reality manipulation." "Exactly. But not just fix. Improve. What if we could use our powers to make reality stronger, more resilient? Instead of breaking the rules, we help reality create better rules. That's theoretical. We don't know if it's possible. Everything we've done for the past 48,000 years was theoretical until we tried it." They worked for another 2 days straight, building a model for what Lisa was calling harmonic manipulation. Instead of forcing reality to bend to their will, they would work with reality's natural tendencies, guiding rather than commanding. It would be like the difference between breaking a tree branch and helping it grow in a new direction. When they had something workable, Lisa called a meeting with both Jakes and Admiral Greg Foster. She presented her findings to the human leadership and a select group of transformed collective members, including Vexira. "This is the answer," Lisa said, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Harmonic manipulation. We work with reality instead of against it. The Devourers won't be attracted because we're not causing damage. We're healing." "How do you know it will work?" Greg asked skeptically. "I don't, not for certain. But I've run every simulation I can think of. The math checks out. And more importantly, it feels right. When I manipulate reality normally, there's always resistance, like pushing against a wall. But when I try harmonic manipulation in the simulations, it flows naturally." Jake Morrison studied the equations carefully. He had thousands of years of experience with reality manipulation, and his intuition was sharp. "This could work," he said slowly. "But there's a catch. Harmonic manipulation requires giving up control. We can guide reality, but we can't force it. We become partners with the universe instead of masters of it." "That's the point," Jake Patterson said. He had been silent until now, but his eyes gleamed with hope. For 48,000 years, humanity has tried to dominate reality. Maybe it's time we learn to cooperate with it instead. "Cooperation is another word for weakness," Greg growled. "If we give up our power, we leave ourselves vulnerable." "We're not giving up power," Lisa corrected. "We're using it differently. Harmonic manipulation is still manipulation. It's just sustainable." The debate continued for hours, but eventually a decision was reached. They would test harmonic manipulation. If it worked, they would teach it to everyone. If it failed, they would return to conventional reality manipulation. Consequences be damned. Vexira volunteered to be part of the test group. She had been one of the first non-humans to transform, and she understood both human and collective perspectives. More importantly, she was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of the constant fear that every action was making things worse. She wanted there to be another way. Lisa Chen personally guided Vexira through the first harmonic manipulation. Don't try to force anything, Lisa instructed. Feel reality around you. Sense its natural flow. You're not changing it. You're helping it become what it wants to be. Vexira closed her eyes and reached out with her expanded consciousness. She felt the quantum foam of reality, the seething probability waves that underlay everything. In the past, she had grabbed those waves and twisted them to her purpose. Now she simply touched them gently, feeling their natural rhythm. And then she understood. Reality wasn't fighting her. It had never been fighting her. She had been fighting it. The resistance she'd always felt wasn't reality trying to maintain stability. It was reality trying to accommodate her demands while also maintaining its own integrity. She had been forcing it to do two contradictory things at once. But if she worked with reality instead of against it, if she helped it achieve both goals simultaneously, there was no conflict, no damage, just change flowing naturally from one state to another. I see it, Vexira breathed. It's beautiful. She opened her eyes and held out her hand. A small flower appeared above her palm, growing from nothing. But unlike before, when creating matter felt like tearing it from somewhere else, this felt like helping something that wanted to exist. The flower was stable, permanent, integrated seamlessly into reality. And most importantly, the devourers didn't react. No new attacks came. The universe's immune system remained calm. It works, Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. By all the stars, it actually works. The news spread quickly. Within days, every human in the galaxy was learning harmonic manipulation. The transformed collective members learned too. It wasn't easy. It required letting go of the sense of control they'd grown used to. But it was possible, however. Not everyone accepted the new way. Admiral Greg Foster and his followers refused to give up conventional reality manipulation. You're handicapping yourselves, Greg argued. Harmonic manipulation might be gentler, but it's also slower and weaker. When the devourers attack in force, you'll wish you'd kept your full power. Maybe, Jake Morrison admitted, but at least we won't be making the problem worse. Besides, I think you're wrong about the power level. Harmonic manipulation might be different, but I don't think it's weaker, just different. The split in humanity became official. Two philosophies, two approaches to existence. Greg's faction, calling themselves the Ascended, continued to use conventional reality manipulation. They believed power was the answer to all problems. Jake's faction, calling themselves the Harmonics, pursued the new path of cooperation with reality. The collective watched this division with a mixture of concern and hope. Some species aligned with the Ascended, believing strength was necessary for survival. Others joined the Harmonics, seeking a more sustainable way forward. Then came the moment of truth. The Devourers launched another major assault, this time targeting a cluster of inhabited systems near the Galactic Rim. Both human factions responded, but separately. The Ascended used their conventional powers, fighting the Devourers with overwhelming force. The Harmonics used their new abilities, working with reality to create zones where the Devourers couldn't exist. Both approaches worked, but the difference was stark. The Ascended drove the Devourers back quickly and decisively, but their actions left scars, minor dead zones where reality had been stressed too far. The Harmonics took longer to achieve victory, but they left no damage. The space they fought in was actually healthier after the battle than before, reality strengthened by their presence. Most importantly, Maya Brooks noticed something crucial in her readings. The Ascended's actions attracted more Devourers as predicted, but the Harmonics' actions didn't. In fact, the Devourers seemed to avoid areas where harmonic manipulation was being used. It was as if the universe's immune system recognized them as healers rather than threats. This changes everything, Maya reported to the leadership. If we all switch to harmonic manipulation, the Devourers might stop attacking entirely. They're not our enemies. They're just doing their job. If we stop being the disease, they'll stop being the cure. Jake Morrison saw the path forward clearly now. We need to merge, he said to Vexira during a private conversation. Not just work together. Actually merge. Humans and the collective combining our consciousnesses into something new. Why? Vexira asked. Because separated, we'll always have conflict. Greg and his faction will keep using conventional manipulation. The Devourers will keep coming. But if we merge, if we become truly unified, we can make the choice as one people. No more human faction and collective faction. Just one galactic consciousness choosing healing over destruction. That's asking people to give up their individual identities. Is it? Or is it asking them to expand their identities to include more? When you transformed, did you lose your Zentarii nature or did you add human understanding to it? Vexira considered this. Both. Neither. I'm not the same person I was, but I haven't lost myself. I've become more. Exactly. That's what I'm proposing for everyone. Not erasure, but expansion. We don't lose who we are. We add to it. The proposal was radical and resistance was fierce. Many species refused to consider it. But many others, particularly those who had already transformed, saw the wisdom in Jake's words. They had already lost their original identities to some degree. Why not choose a new identity deliberately? One that unified the galaxy. Jake Morrison volunteered to be the first human to fully merge with a collective member. Vexira volunteered to be his partner. The merging process took 3 days, overseen by Lisa Chen and a team of specialists. What emerged was something entirely new. Not Jake, not Vexira, but Jake Vex, single consciousness with dual memories, dual perspectives and abilities, neither had possessed alone. Jake Vex could